So welcome to Dan About Thailand. I have a special vlog today in association with ThaiVisa.com. I'm here with His Excellency Brian Davidson, the British Ambassador to Thailand. Brian, thanks for letting me ask some questions.
Thanks for coming, Dan.
Yeah, no worries. Before we go into the meat of the questions, let's start with some trivial ones. What's your favourite Thai dish?
My favourite Thai dish is actually sort of Thai street food. I particularly like sai grot, so spicy sausage from the north of Thailand.
Oh, okay. Nice. Most people say pad Thai.
Well, no, and it's not fancy food, so that's why I like it. You know, we eat out too much in fancy restaurants and big lavish dinners, so it's really nice just to pick up some snack food on the street and
keeping it real.
Keep it real.
Okay, so since you've been to Thailand, what's your best memory so far?
That's very difficult actually, because there are so many memories of Thailand. I mean, I think, and this is not meant to sound sort of highfalutin, but I think when I was at the cremation of His late Majesty King Rama IX, and I say that because, you know, I was there with my husband Scott as guests of the Thai government to pay tribute to the late king, and you know, I think back to an ordinary boy from Northern Ireland, you know, suddenly finding yourself at this sort of event, and actually just being able to sort of pass on the respects of the United Kingdom to His late Majesty. And I just stood there in the palace thinking, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is real, this is me. So that's one of the most memorable.
Really, I think that's going to be one of the memories that lasts with you forever.
Yeah. Very special. You know, climbing up to put your sort of cypress sort of token in the funeral pyre. Quite extraordinary.
Yeah, privileged.
Yeah.
Okay, so the British Embassy is going to be moving from its current location on Wireless Road. So where's the new location, and will the provision of services remain unchanged?
Great. Well, I'm glad you asked, because actually there's a little bit of confusion. Quite a few people think we've already moved, and we haven't. So you can see here we're in the embassy compound. And I think the confusion is because we're doing it in two phases. So the first phase, which was the move of the residence, so the ambassador's residence, and the second phase, the move of the embassy. So the first phase is almost complete, and I hope to move into the new residence of the ambassador, which is on the river near Sapan Daksin, before Christmas. But the second phase, which is the move of the embassy proper, won't happen until March next year. And we've got 3 floors of a grade A office building in Satorn, the AIA building. So near the time we'll be sending out some messages just to explain where we are, how to get to us. I don't think the metro station will be open yet, but not long after. And that will sort of set out the time frame for the move. And yes, everything remains unchanged in the sense we will be doing exactly what we do here, but in a different venue. But it is also an opportunity to try and look at how we operate in Thailand and to modernize our approach. So I think while this is a fantastic location, you know, the office space was built in the 60s and 70s. It's not really designed for modern technology. So this will give us a chance to look a little bit at 2 things. 1, how we deliver services, and 2, how we sort of operate in a sort of an open plan, high-tech environment. So encouraging people to use smartphones, IT more, to get out about on the road, not to be sitting at their desks so much, engaging with business, with academia a little bit more on the spot. Now, I guess what you're actually asking is about provision of consular services, because that's probably what your viewers are most interested in, and that won't change. Obviously, we want to look at can we use the opportunity of the move to streamline some of those services, to use the new technology better to make sure that we can deliver a little bit more of that online as far as possible, so that people don't have to come in all the way into the embassy to do something that's relatively straightforward. And there are a number of things that I think we can do. For instance, some of the affirmations, although the affirmation for marital status, for example, has to be done in person because you're affirming, you know, in front of a witness. Actually, all the preparatory work, the application, the filling in the forms, the payment, can be done online, so that when you come in, it's a quick process, very efficient, and you don't waste more time than you need. Then there are other services, a bit like, you know, certification of documents, where really there's no need for you to come in person to an embassy, and we can do all of that so by email, by post, and do that remotely. So we're looking at how we can streamline the services we offer. But I would just say that, you know, although I know you're mostly interested in the consular service, it is, while it's an important part of what we do, it's a small part of what we do. And actually, the embassy is here to promote trade and investment between the 2 countries, you know, to lobby Thailand on issues of concern to the UK in the global arena, you know, to partner with Thailand in ASEAN around climate change, you know, combating wildlife trading, you know, human trafficking. So there's a whole range of work that many teams in the office do that remains a little bit under the radar. Sometimes because it's quite sensitive, and sometimes because actually it's not impacting on your daily life. which is understandable.
That's right. I think it's really useful that you actually clarified it for the people watching as well, because everyone speaks consular, but you are more than that. But the message really then I'm taking is it's about people moving into a new digital era, which will be better for everyone, and it's a better service. Is that what you're aiming?
The aim is to make it a better service, yes. I mean, there are limits to what we can do, because some of the services that we're sort of mandated to provide by ministers in the UK have to be done in person. So an affirmation, which is sort of, you affirming an oath, has to be done in person. So those sort of things, the best we can do is to try and streamline the rest of the process, so that actually when you come to do the bit that's face-to-face, it's very quick and you can be in and out and not waste the rest of your day. To the extent that we can deliver services remotely, we will try to do that. I think the other element is to sort of spend time with the Thai government, looking at the amount of documentation that's required for different processes in Thailand, and to try and persuade them that actually maybe not so much documentation is required to get a driving license, for example, or that some of the things that they're asking that previously had to be stamped by the embassy, actually, does it really need to be? Can that just be provided by the customer himself? And therefore you don't need to come and get these extra documents. You can use documentation you have to access those services in Thailand. So it's a little bit about trying to help people help themselves, and trying to persuade the Thai government to simplify the process, to allow people to go about their daily business a little less bureaucratically.
So I think people look back on 2019 as an expat and probably a retiree as one of some turbulence and challenges. And so I want to talk about some of those challenges. The withdrawal of the income letters was probably one of the most talked about topics on Thai Visa of 2019. Can you explain why it came about and why the decision was taken for the embassy to no longer provide income letters to British expats?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of information given out at the time, and I think perhaps we didn't expose people to the amount of discussion that had gone on with the Thai government in the run-up to the decision that we had to withdraw that provision. And essentially it was because the Thai government was saying to us, you providing this letter is you, the British government, validating the information in that letter. You're attesting that this is true. And of course, we have no way of checking whether the information provided is correct or not. So we spoke to the Thai government and said, look, can we not simply certify that the letter, the document that we're presenting is genuine? We're not talking about whether the information contained therein is genuine or not. But the answer very firmly from the Thai sort of legal system was no. If you sign this letter, you're attesting that everything in this letter is valid. And that is something that when we referred it back to ministers in the UK, they said you simply cannot do. So what we have done is spoken to the Thais and say, well, okay, if we can't provide these proof of income letters, can we have a conversation with you, the Thai government, about what other forms of proof you would accept, so that actually the lack of a certified letter from the British Embassy isn't a bar to getting a visa. And those are discussions that are ongoing, and we are constantly trying to find different options that we can offer to the Thai government, to try and lobby them, to persuade them to make life easier for those who want to retire here and who have the funds. They simply don't have it in a particular format. So that's something that we're always keen to hear ideas, and we got a lot when we sort of had the first round of consultation about what could change. And we'll continue that discussion with the Thais, and we're continually open to new ideas, which we will road test with the Thai government and see if we can get different ways of doing the same thing to replace the fact that we can no longer issue a proof of income letter.
Also living in Thailand, I think for expats, it's been somewhat of a transition as the Thai government seeks to act actually in similar ways to other countries like the UK. But it's come as a bit of a wake-up call to some of the retirees that have been here for many years. So the mandatory insurance for OA visas, it's proven some issues for those that are over 75 that can't get insurance, and those with pre-existing conditions. What's the British Embassy's position on this?
Well, I agree. I think it's a very distressing situation for people who find themselves in that position, who've been for many years, who perhaps hadn't anticipated this. I mean, the sad truth is it's a requirement by the Ministry of Public Health. They have said it is now mandatory. We've been speaking both to the government, to the Ministry of Public Health, but also to the insurance companies to see if there's a way to sort of not quite get around this, but to make it easier for those, particularly those who are already here, who haven't already planned for their retirement in that way. Of course, insurance companies operate on a commercial basis, and they assess the risk and they set their premiums accordingly. But I think we can do more lobbying the government to say, okay, is there a way we can at least put in transitory arrangements? Is there something the government can do with the companies to sort of make it easier for those who are here, and reaching that age or over that age to get insurance? Because ultimately, this is about people having the funds to fund their retirement, to be able to live here, to meet their health needs. And actually, it's not just over 75. I mean, if you were to have if you were out to have an accident tomorrow or a chronic illness and went into hospital, cost of healthcare can rise very quickly to very large amounts. And so you need to have thought about how you're going to provision for yourself while you're in Thailand into your old age. So, that's not an answer to those who are now at 75 and finding it difficult. Unfortunately, I can't fire a magic bullet and say, I can make this right. But what I can do is continue to speak to the government and say, can we explore different avenues with you, how that might be made easier for people to get that insurance? Or are there different ways people can prepare for their retirement? Because ultimately, we all want people to have some access to funds to look after themselves in their happy retirement here in Thailand. So that's where we stand at the moment in terms of speaking to the government.
I agree. I'm sure the Thai Visa viewers will be really happy to hear some of your answers there. Okay, I'm going to move on now.
Sure.
Because we could talk forever on these subjects. There's a lot of confusion about what assistance the embassy can do to provide for expats. So those that get arrested or maybe need hospital treatment, can you give some clarification on what assistance you can provide, what you can and what you can't do?
So, I mean, I could give you a very long list of the do's and the don'ts, and most people look at the what we don't do rather than what we do. I mean, the answer is if you go onto our website, the www.gov.uk website, and under consular services, there's a sort of a list there of what UK ministers have decided that consular teams around the world will provide to customers, and that lists it all out. But, I think what I would say is what we try to do is to prioritize our services to the most vulnerable. So those that find themselves, the small percentage who find themselves in probably the worst point in their life when they're in Thailand. It's a very small minority. But, if you're arrested, if you find yourself in detention center, we'll come speak to you. We'll come and see that you're being treated properly. If you have medical concerns, we'll speak to the authorities about that. We'll provide you with a list of lawyers to help you access sort of legal representation. Those are the sort of things we can do to sort of help you sort of find your way through this process. We deal with probably, on average, around 1,500 serious consular cases a year. I mean, I think this year we're up to about 1,000, 1,100, of which maybe 250 are around the most vulnerable in society. So those would be people with mental health issues, children, victims of rape and sexual assault. And so what the consular team is really principally trained to do is to respond in those extreme circumstances, to offer people the support they need to get through this point in their life where they're probably at their lowest ebb, where they don't know where else to turn. We can offer them some guidance, some support, some advice on how to work through that. We can put them in touch with the right people who can give them the professional advice and support they need. And as an example, I mean, we have, I think last year we dealt with, very sad, but over 400 bereaved families. So that means in Thailand, we have on average one British citizen dying a day that the consular team are responding to in terms of dealing with the police, autopsies, and a very upset family and friends on how they sort of cope with that. So, rather than give you a list, I mean, you can find the list, it's really about making sure that we're set up to deal with the most vulnerable, the most critical cases that come across our desks.
Okay. You mentioned mental health as being one of the priorities here, and it was only recently that I read that expats, not just in Thailand, are at bigger risk of mental health problems than those that live in their domestic countries.
Really?
And it cited things like loneliness, detachment, language barriers. Because I actually was looking it up because I thought it would be the opposite. I thought you come abroad and you're in the sunshine and things are better. So it's a very real problem. And I know in the UK that it's a hot subject at the moment. But here in Thailand, where there are mental health issues amongst expats, because I understand the British Embassy in Laos provides or has at least access for services related to supporting people with mental health issues. Does the British Embassy in Bangkok have a plan to do any similar services for expats?
Well, we would have a similar sort of arrangements, either with hospitals or institutions or NGOs that support people with mental health. It is a huge issue, yes, and we recognise, and I think it's not just people who are sort of here and find themselves lonely, but there's people, as you would in the UK, who've retired, who are sort of maybe late on their 80s or 90s, and mental health issues are a fact of old age. So we're working, with hospitals, with sort of NGOs, but also with the government to see how we can improve the provision of services and the response of the Thai system to people with mental health issues. Because ultimately, if you can resolve these issues at a very early stage, if you can sort of see what the underlying causes are and address those through policy interventions, it stops that person becoming a vulnerable case. It stops them becoming a consular case because they have the ability then to sort of deal with it in their own society, with their own circle. So yes, fundamentally we have the same sort of, not identical to Laos because it's a different country, but we have the same sort of approach in terms of working with professionals who can support anyone with mental health issues.
I've got two more questions.
All right.
How many British nationals are living in Thailand at the moment?
So it's very difficult to say, but the figure we have, I think, is now roughly 73,000 plus people sort of resident here in Thailand. So that's our core resident population. Add to that around 1 million British tourists a year, and that sort of gives you a sense of the scale of and complexity of the issues dealt with by the consular team. And we have here probably the largest single consular team in the world. The networks in America and in Spain are bigger, but actually as a single focus, this is probably our largest team in the world to deal with the scale, but also the complexity of the cases. And I think what is unusual about Thailand is there's a vast range of consular cases that come across the desk. It's not just lost passports, which I think most people think of. It's actually some cases of child safeguarding, mental health, rape, sexual assault, trafficking, drugs charges, arrests, and terribly sadly, traffic accidents is probably one of the biggest consular caseloads here. Sadly, people who die on motorcycles on the Thai roads.
Younger people, do you find?
I don't think you can necessarily say it's younger, but I mean, traditionally, I think people in it sounds like I'm generalizing, but there is a question about young backpackers on motorcycles without helmets, with a few glasses of beer in them, doesn't lead to sort of happy results on the road. So, we do quite a lot of work, both in terms of trying to sort of make people aware before they come to Thailand. And I think residents are much better here because they understand the dangers of the road, they understand how the system operates. But I think for sort of people traveling in, just to make them a bit more conscious that you may be on holiday, but you shouldn't just abandon all common sense. You should wear a helmet, you shouldn't drink and drive. But also we do a lot of work with the Thai authorities to make sure that the people renting out motor scooters or jet skis, they're properly maintained, it's properly regulated, they're safe. They provide helmets, they give you a sort of a course on how to use it. So we're doing what we can to sort of stop the problem ever becoming a problem. Because ultimately, we all want everyone, all British people here living or visiting, to have a fantastic time like we do and not run into any problems. With the best will in the world, we don't really want to see you in our consular section because that means you have a problem. If we could get the consular caseload down to 0, that would be, nirvana, because essentially it would mean that people are not sort of falling foul of problems in Thailand. But we're here to help those small minority who do find themselves in a predicament that they didn't expect and didn't plan for.
You may have actually answered my final question in amongst everything else. What some of the common reasons for expats needing assistance from the embassy? Have we covered most of it?
I think probably most of it. I think I would say that quite often it's around arrests. You get picked up for some reason. You don't know what to do. You don't know who to turn to. You don't know how to get yourself out of the detention system. That's where the embassy will sort of step in, give you a bit of advice, point you in the right direction to lawyers. Talk to the authorities to make sure you're being looked after properly, and that particularly if you have a health issue and you find yourself in a detention centre, we want to make sure that you have access to the medication you need. So arrest and detention is one area. I think sadly another big area is bereavements, where people die for natural or through traffic accidents, and then you have a family coming over who need to be supported. They don't know Thailand, they don't know how to sort of get around the system here. They're in a state of shock and grievance and anger, all the emotions you experience, and then you have friends and family here who equally are suffering. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. We do quite a bit around child safeguarding. We have probably around 30 cases a year of minors who we are responsible for making sure that they're properly looked after when they find themselves, in an unfortunate situation. So there's a whole range of stuff. It's incredibly complex and diverse, which is why we have an incredibly well-trained, highly skilled consular team who have to deal with this every day. And I have to say, I have nothing but admiration for my consular colleagues who every day come to work, are probably dealing with people who are at their lowest ebb, but still are there to try and help them find a way through this what seems like an impossible situation.
Really, it was very interesting listening to you today, because the expats that have asked questions tended to focus on only what's important to them, and what's come across is the role of the British Embassy is much more diverse, busy. Some of the things you touch on, I wouldn't have imagined.
Yeah.
So I hope that's come across today. Your Excellency, Brian Davidson, British Ambassador for Thailand, thanks for talking to me today.
Thanks for coming in, Dan. Good to see you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.